Welcome to Millennium News Hour. I am Tanziba Nauri. In today's bulletin, we will get you detailed news from across the nation and the world. Let's begin with the headlines of the day. Biden implores voters to save democracy from lies, violence. In campaign swing, Biden focuses on incumbent Democrats. Biden is spending $4.5 billion to help lower home heating costs. Record fundraising in Georgia governor's race nears $170 million. Pence comes to North Carolina for GOP Senate candidate Bud. Hassan Bolduc meet for final debate in key US Senate race. Officials say 200 plus votes cast for wrong Nashville races. Autopsy says takeoff died from gunshot wounds to head, torso. New York could get $524 million under opioid settlements with Teva. Musk said people banned from Twitter won't be restored for weeks. Ukraine says Russian shelling damaged nuclear plant power lines. UN Security Council denies Russia call for bioweapons probe. Former Pakistan PM Imran Khan wounded in shooting at protest. A giant Maradona emerged in Argentina days before World Cup. Javier Astro's pitch second no-hitter in World Series history. And Auger Aliassime Rublev in ATP finals as Fritz Nadal lose. Now news in detail. Warning that democracy itself is in peril, President Joe Biden called on Americans Wednesday night to use their ballots in next week's midterm elections to stand up against lies, violence, and dangerous ultra-mega election disruptors who are trying to succeed where they failed in subverting the 2020 elections. This is no time to stand aside, he declared. Silence is complicity. After weeks of reassuring talk about America's economy and inflation, Biden turned to a darker, more urgent message, declaring in the final days of midterm election voting that the nation's system of governance is under threat from former President Donald Trump's election-denying lies and the violence Biden said they inspire. The president singled out ultra-mega Republicans, a reference to Trump's Make America Great Again slogan, calling them a minority but driving force of the Republican Party. Pointing in particular to last Friday's attack on House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, Biden said that Trump's false claims about a stolen election have fueled the dangerous rise of political violence and voter intimidation over the past 2 years. There is an alarming rise in the number of people in this country condoning political violence or simply remaining silent, Biden added. In our bones, we know democracy is at risk, but we also know it's in our power to preserve our democracy. The president's speech focused squarely on the right of voting and the counting of that vote, amounted to a plea for Americans to step back from the inflamed rhetoric that has heightened fears of political violence and challenges to the integrity of the elections. President Joe Biden's travel plan for his last big campaign swing before Tuesday's midterm elections reveals his defensive stance in the campaign's closing days. He is spending the bulk of his time trying to hang on to seats that his party already holds. Biden is kicking off a four-state, three-day campaign swing on Thursday to support Democrats in competitive races in solidly blue California, Illinois, and New Mexico, as well as battleground Pennsylvania, where Biden has deep roots. His itinerary illustrates the limited political clout of a president who has been held at arm's length by most Democrats in tough races this cycle. It also suggests that the president, whose approval rating remains underwater, has concluded that he can be most effective using the waning days before polls close to shore up support for Democratic candidates in areas that he easily won in 2020. The Biden administration said Wednesday it is making $4.5 billion available through a low-income home energy assistance program to help with heating costs heading into what is expected to be a brutal winter. Spending for the program is significantly higher than the typical annual funding of about $3.5 billion, but far below the $8 billion the administration and congressional Democrats delivered last winter as part of President Joe Biden's coronavirus relief package. The money spent last year was by far the largest appropriation in a single year since the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program was established in 1981. The money will be provided to state, local, and tribal governments to help more than 5 million families pay heating and utility bill costs and can also be used to make home energy repairs. Big money continues to roll into Georgia's governor's race even as Republican incumbent Brian Kemp and Democratic challenger Stacey Abrams have already blown through the records they set in 2018. Abrams has raised nearly $98 million, according to reports filed with the State Ethics Commission, while Kemp has raised more than $69 million. Abrams and Kemp filed their final periodic finance reports of the campaign Tuesday for contributions through October 25, but continue to file supplemental reports of large donations. Since October 1st, Abrams has received more than $14 million in cash and in-kind donations, while Kemp has received $8.1 million. Kemp had $10.4 million in cash remaining as of October 25, while Abrams had $5.7 million. Both candidates would seek to reload if no one wins a majority on election day, with a runoff set for December 6 as required by state law. Libertarian Shane Hazel is also on the ballot. Former Vice President Mike Pence stormed in North Carolina on Wednesday in the final days before the midterm elections with U.S. Senate candidate Ted Budd, calling him one of the strongest conservative voices in the House, where he has served for the past 6 years. "I'm here to say just one thing and one thing only, and that is that North Carolina and America need Ted Budd in the United States Senate," Pence said after he and Budd answered questions on the economy and education from state GOP chairman Michael Whatley before a few dozen Republican activists. Earlier, Pence attended a luncheon fundraiser for the Senate candidate, who is in a highly competitive race with Democratic rival Cheri Beasley. The race is one of several that could determine whether Democrats hold on to power in the narrowly divided Senate. Pence became a leading target of former President Donald Trump's ire after refusing to help him block certification of Democrat Joe Biden's win, while Pence served as the presiding officer of those formal proceedings on January 6, 2021. The anger spilled over to Trump supporters who considered him a turncoat. U.S. Senator Maggie Hassan on Wednesday accused her Republican challenger of changing his positions to hide his extremism, while Don Bolduc accused the Democratic incumbent of being steadfast in evading questions. In their third and final debate before next Tuesday's election, Hassan repeatedly cast Bolduc as an extremist, punching on his past statements on abortion, voter fraud, and other issues. Bolduc, a retired Army general, spent months promoting Donald Trump's lies about the 2020 election, but after winning the Republican primary in September, said it wasn't stolen, and then more recently said that he wasn't sure. And in a debate last week, he brought up unfounded claims about busloads of voters casting illegal ballots in New Hampshire, which Trump himself mentioned in endorsing Bolduc on Monday. More than 200 votes have been cast in the wrong races in Nashville since early voting began in Tennessee, election officials confirmed Wednesday. Davidson County Election Administrator Jeff Roberts said his office reviewed voter data throughout the night after the Associated Press alerted officials Tuesday that voters were receiving conflicting information on what race they could vote in for the midterm elections. That review determined that 190 voters cast ballots in a wrong congressional race, 16 cast votes in a wrong state Senate race, and 6 cast votes in a wrong state House race. Roberts remained confident voters would receive the correct ballots for the remaining 2 days of early voting in Tennessee. The fix has been put in place, Roberts said, adding he had sent the correct updates to the Secretary of State's office earlier Wednesday. Secretary of State spokesperson Julia Bragg said the office was first made aware of the issue Tuesday afternoon. The district assignment information on the state's Go Vote TN app was updated late Wednesday morning, she said. Officials say votes that have been already cast will be counted for those races. Voters do not have an option to retract their vote. Now the exclusive report of midterm election presented by our executive reporter.
Abdul Ali here with your Millennium News 24 update, North Carolina. As you're aware, early voting has started across the country and Republicans are expecting a red wave. Is that going to happen? Well, all indicators are that is exactly what's happening. Here in Cabarrus County, North Carolina, people are turning out in record numbers to cast their vote. Democrats only make up 39.5% of voters. That's 2.3% under 2020 and 4% under 2018. While Republicans' early voting numbers are up 2% over 2020 and 1% over 2018. For more news and updates on North Carolina, please stay here to Millennium News 24.
Rapper Takeoff died from gunshot wounds to the head and torso following a shooting outside a private party at a downtown Houston bowling alley, authorities announced Wednesday. The announcement following an autopsy by the Harris County Institute of Forensic Sciences in Houston comes as police are still seeking the public's help in tracking down the person or persons responsible for the rapper's death Tuesday. Takeoff's primary cause of death was listed as penetrating gunshot wounds of head and torso into arm, and his manner of death was called homicide. Takeoff, whose off-stage name was Chrisney Curry Ball, formed one-third of the Grammy Award-nominated rap trio Migos with Uncle Quavo and Cousin Offset from suburban Atlanta. The 28-year-old rapper was killed around 2:30 a.m. Tuesday when gunfire erupted outside of 810 Billiards and Bowling following a private party. New York will receive up to $524 million from drug maker Teva to settle claims that the company contributed to the U.S. opioid epidemic, the largest amount secured from an opioid manufacturer or distributor sued by the state, Attorney General Letitia James announced Thursday. The state has reached a series of settlements with drug companies following an Attorney General's lawsuit in 2019 accusing them of deceptive marketing and failing to prevent the unlawful diversion of controlled substances. Teva Pharmaceuticals USA Incorporation and its affiliates were found liable last year for public nuisance charges by a jury on Long Island. To resolve the remedies phase, Teva agreed to pay out $313 million over 18 years, James said. New York will additionally receive $211 million from a $4.3 billion national settlement Teva agreed to in July, if it is approved by state and local governments and tribes, according to the Attorney General. Elon Musk said Wednesday that Twitter will not allow anyone who has been kicked off the site to return until it sets up procedures on how to do that, a process that will take at least a few weeks. That would mean people banned from the site for violating Twitter's rules for harassment, violence, or election and COVID-related misinformation will not be able to return before next Tuesday's US midterm elections. The pledge came after Musk, who took control of the social media site last week after buying it for $44 billion, said in a tweet that he had met with a handful of civil society leaders about how Twitter will continue to combat hate and harassment and enforce its election integrity policies. Those attending the meeting Tuesday asked Musk not to restore the banned users ahead of the midterms, said Jessica Gonzalez, an attorney and co-CEO of the advocacy group Free Press, who attended the meeting. Now it's time for global updates. Ukraine's nuclear state operator said Thursday that Russia has shelled and damaged power lines connecting Europe's largest nuclear power plant to the Ukrainian grid, leaving the plant reliant on diesel generators again. The generators have enough fuel to maintain the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in southeastern Ukraine for just 15 days, Energoatom said in a post on its Telegram channel. The countdown has begun, Energoatom said, noting it had limited possibilities to maintain the ZNPP in a safe mode, raising fears of a potential nuclear disaster. With its 6 reactors inoperative, the plant relies on outside electricity to cool its spent fuel. Russia and Ukraine have traded blame for months amid the war for shelling at and around the plant that the UN's nuclear watchdog has warned could cause a radiation emergency. The nuclear power plant lies within part of the Zaporizhzhia region that has been occupied by Russian forces since the early days of the war, which began when Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24. The UN Security Council on Wednesday overwhelmingly rejected Russia's attempt to establish a commission to investigate its unfounded claims that Ukraine and the United States are carrying out military biological activities that violate the convention prohibiting the use of biological weapons. Russia only got support from China in the vote on its resolution, with the US, Britain, and France voting no and the 10 other council nations abstaining. The resolution was not approved because it failed to get the minimum 9 yes votes required for adoption. The 2-3-10 vote reflected the Council's continuing opposition and skepticism about Russia's actions since its February 24 invasion of Ukraine. The Council has been paralyzed from taking any action against Russia's military offensive because of Russia's veto power. Russia circulated the draft resolution and a 310-page document to Council members last week, alleging that military biological activity is taking place at biological laboratories in Ukraine with support from the US Defense Department. A gunman opened fire Thursday at a campaign truck carrying Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan, wounding him slightly in the leg and killing one of his supporters, his party and police said. 9 others were also wounded. The identity of the gunman, who was arrested at the scene, was not immediately known. No group has claimed responsibility for the shooting. The attack raised new concerns about growing political instability in Pakistan, a nuclear-armed nation with a massive population of 225 million people. Since his ouster in a no-confidence vote in Parliament in April, Khan has mobilized mass rallies across the country, where he has whipped up crowds with claims that he was a victim of a conspiracy by his successor, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, and the United States. Both the new premier and Washington have denied such allegations. The attack on the Khan convoy happened in the Wazirabad district in the eastern Punjab province, where the former cricket star turned Islamist politician was traveling in a large convoy of trucks and cars heading towards the capital, Islamabad. The convoy is part of his campaign aimed at forcing the government to hold early elections. Now it's time for business news. Today's New York stock close price is 14,455.67. The NYSE Composite is decreased by 42.18 points or 0.29%. Tokyo stock close price is 27,663.39. The Nikkei 225 index is decreased by 15.53 points or 0.06%. Shanghai stock close price is 2,997.8057. The Shanghai Composite Index is decreased by 5.56 points or 0.19%. Hong Kong stock close price is 15,339.49. The Hang Seng Index is decreased by 487.68 points or 3.08%. Bombay stock close price is 60,836.41. The Sensex Index is decreased by 69.68 points or 0.11%. Now a look of today's sports stories. In the middle of the concrete jungle that is Argentina's bustling capital, a huge mural has emerged of Diego Maradona wearing a national team jersey, his right hand in a fist and a defiant expression on his face. The massive artwork, 148 feet high and 131 feet wide, and painted on the side of a 14-story building in Buenos Aires, is one of several tributes that Argentinians have dedicated to their soccer god shortly before the start of this year's World Cup in Qatar, the first since Maradona's death on November 25, 2020. Well-known street artist Martin Ron was behind the world's largest mural, inspired by a photograph of the then Argentina captain that captures his expression shortly before he sang the national anthem at the 1990 World Cup final against West Germany, which Argentina lost 1-0. Xavier and Houston's bullpen combined on just the second no-hitter in World Series history, silencing a booming lineup and boisterous fans as the Astros blanked Philadelphia 5-0 Wednesday night to even the matchup at 2 games each. The only previous no-hitter in the World Series was a perfect game by Don Larson of the New York Yankees against the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1956. Xavier and 3 relievers weren't perfect in Game 4, but they were close. Plus, they had done this before. Xavier, the starter in a combined no-hitter against the New York Yankees in June, was pulled with a no-hitter in progress after 6 innings and 97 pitches this time. Brian Abreu, Rafael Montero, and Presley each followed with a hitless inning for the first combined no-hitter in postseason play. Astros arms totaled 14 strikeouts and 3 walks in ensuring this year's championship will be decided this weekend back at Minute Maid Park. Felix Auger-Aliassime and Andrei Rublev qualified for the ATP finals after Taylor Fritz and Hubert Hurkacz, the other contenders for the 2 remaining spots, lost in the second round of the Paris Masters on Wednesday. 8-seeded Auger-Aliassime outlasted qualifier Mikael Ymer 6-7, 6-4, 7-6 to next play wildcard entry Gilles Simon, who overcame 9th-seeded Fritz 7-5, 5-7, 6-4. Auger-Aliassime saved 14 of 17 breakpoints and converted 4 of 5 to extend his winning streak to 14 matches. Fritz failed to convert 3 set points on Simon's serve at 5-4 in the opening set. The American also failed to convert any of the 3 breakpoints he had at 3-2 in the final set. He made 36 unforced errors to 16 for Simon, who is ranked 188th and plans to retire after this tournament. Teenager Holger Rune stunned 10th-seeded Hurkacz 7-5, 6-1 to meet Rublev, who reached the third round on Tuesday. Let's have a look on today's weather chart. That's all in today's news. Keep watching Millennium News 24 for latest updates. Millennium TV USA and Millennium News 24 network is transmitted and available to be watched free for all at TVs such as Sony, Samsung, LG, Roku TV, Amazon TV and Apple TV. And also in all European countries and Australia, available with Sky Network, Worldwide Jadoo TV, Radiant IPTV, Worldwide Jago BD Network and Horizon Satellite globally. Stay connected with us for all types of informative and entertainment program. Thank you.